Claire never expected a single sentence to shake her entire world, but it happened on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The sun had barely risen over Seattle, and the kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and cold rain drifting through a half-open window. She was sitting quietly, waiting for her heart to settle after another night of restless sleep, when Daniel, her husband of 12 years, walked in, looked at her with the calm sadness she didn't yet understand, and said, "Claire, I think you're craving something. Or someone. I'm not able to give you any more." Her breath caught in her chest. Most people forget moments like this slowly, letting them fade through the week. But Claire knew instantly this one would stay with her forever. It was the way he said it, soft, steady, without anger, almost as if he had accepted something she could not even admit to herself. And that made the moment even heavier. She didn't respond. Her hands wrapped around the warm mug, but she felt cold, like someone had opened a secret window inside her chest. Daniel didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He simply nodded, touched her shoulder gently, and walked out the door for work. The sound of the door closing felt like a quiet warning, one she was not ready to face. Claire sat alone for a long time. She knew she had been distant lately, but she had no idea it showed. She had blamed it on work, age, stress, or even the gloomy weather. But deep down, she knew the truth had been building for years. She felt unseen. Not unloved. Daniel was a good man, but unseen in a way that made her feel as though she were disappearing into the background of her own life. The restlessness inside her had nothing to do with wanting a different life or leaving her marriage. It was a longing to feel something alive, again, connection, energy, something that reminded her she still mattered. That afternoon, she drove to Hartman Community Center, where she had been volunteering for several years. The center was a mix of old brick walls, warm lights, and the comfortable chatter of people who had known each other too long to bother pretending. Claire liked the routine. It was simple, steady, predictable. Everything in her life seemed to be. But that changed the moment she walked into the main room and met the new program. Coordinator Evan Parker 20-8. New to Seattle, smart, confident in a quiet way, with a smile that made people want to listen. His presence filled the room naturally, without trying. When Claire approached him, he turned with an expression of genuine curiosity, as though he had been waiting to meet her. "You must be Claire," he said, holding out his hand. "Everyone told me you're the one who keeps this place running." His tone wasn't flirty, and yet it wasn't plain either. It was warmth, the kind of warmth that came from noticing things, from paying attention. Claire shook his hand, and for a split second, something flickered inside her, unexpected, small, but unmistakable. It wasn't attraction in the dramatic movie sense. It wasn't desire. It was something simpler. She felt visible. Someone looked at her as if she were a whole person, not just someone fulfilling a role she had lived in for years. Evan asked questions about the programs, the volunteers, the upcoming events. He listened closely, laughed easily, and treated her like her experience mattered. Claire felt a lightness she hadn't felt in years. She didn't think about her age. She didn't think about Daniel. She didn't think about anything except how natural the conversation felt. When she left the center, she didn't tell herself a story about what the feeling meant. She didn't imagine anything dramatic happening. But she couldn't ignore that something inside her had stirred in a way she couldn't explain. That evening, when she returned home, she expected the day to settle into its usual rhythm: quiet dinner, small talk, maybe a show before bed. Instead, she felt the air shift the moment she saw Daniel. He was standing by the counter, arms crossed loosely, eyes watching her with a kind of attention that made her nervous. He didn't ask how the day was. He didn't comment on the weather. Instead, he took a slow breath and said, "Claire, you seem lighter today." She froze, unsure how to answer. She didn't realize her expression had changed. She didn't realize anything had changed at all. Then he added carefully, "Did something happen at the center? Someone new? Start there?" Her pulse jumped. She wondered how he could possibly know. She wasn't smiling uncontrollably. She wasn't behaving dramatically. She had done nothing wrong. Still, Daniel's eyes held something she hadn't seen in years. fear he didn't want to name. She didn't know how to respond without lying. She didn't want to explain something she didn't even understand herself. She didn't want to hurt him. But silence often speaks louder than words. They sat at the table eating quietly. Halfway through the meal, Daniel set down his fork and said, "Claire, we've been drifting. I feel like I'm losing you inch by inch. And today, it feels like you've found something outside this house that you've been missing here." His voice wasn't accusing. If anything, it was pleading. Not with anger, but with vulnerability. Claire felt her chest tighten with guilt and confusion. "I'm not accusing you of anything," he continued. "I just want to know what's happening inside you. Because I can feel you slipping away, and I don't know how to pull you back." Her eyes stung, but she didn't cry. She felt torn between two truths: the loyalty she had for the life she built with Daniel, and the quiet spark she felt for the first time in years, even if it came from nothing more than a moment of attention from someone younger. That night, she lay awake beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling. His hand rested near hers, close but not touching. She didn't move toward him, not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't know what her heart wanted anymore. She wasn't planning to fall for someone else. She wasn't searching for escape. She wasn't trying to open a door to something forbidden. But she also couldn't deny the truth she felt deep inside. She had changed, and she didn't know how to go back to who she was before. Daniel sensed everything without her. Saying a single word, she wondered how long he'd known. She wondered how long she'd been drifting. She wondered why her heart felt alive and lost at the same time. The next day at the community center, Evan noticed something different about her too. "You okay?" he asked gently. His voice wasn't prying. It was genuine concern. Claire felt a strange urge to confide in him. Even though she knew she shouldn't, she stayed quiet. But Evan still watched her with a kind of careful attention that made her heart ache, because it reminded her of everything she had been missing for years. Later that night, Taniel sat beside her on the couch. No TV, no distractions. "Claire," he said softly, "I'm willing to fight for us. But I need to know if you want to be fought for." His words were simple but devastating, because she didn't know the answer. The spark she felt when she met Evan wasn't love, wasn't longing for romance, wasn't about wanting a younger man. It was about something deeper, about being seen, valued, understood, and awakened after years of fading into routine. She wasn't craving Evan, she was craving herself. But she had no idea how to tell Daniel that without breaking his heart, and she had no idea how to stop the growing connection between her and Evan if it remained unspoken. For the first time in her life, Claire stood at the edge of a truth she didn't want to face. Someone younger had reminded her of the woman she used to be, and Daniel had noticed long before she did. The next choice she made would change everything. Claire woke to the soft glow of early morning sunlight. It's the kind that slips quietly through blinds and catches dust in golden streaks. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a message from Evan Parker. She froze. She didn't want to open it. She didn't want to feel anything. But the curiosity, the part of her that had been restless for months, compelled her fingers to tap the screen. "Good morning, Claire. Hope your day starts well." It was innocent, simple, and yet it made her heart skip. She put the phone down, staring at the ceiling, as if the answer she sought might appear there. Daniel stirred beside her, stretching and muttering about work. His presence was comforting, grounding, yet it reminded her of the chasm growing quietly between them. She loved Daniel. She truly did. But some part of her was waking up, a part that longed for excitement, for attention, for recognition of the woman she had buried under years of routine and obligation. By mid-morning, she found herself at the center again, volunteering as usual. Evan was organizing files, his movements efficient and calm. He looked up and smiled warmly when he saw her. "Hey, Claire. Glad you're here." "Morning," she replied, forcing a casual tone. But her pulse betrayed her calm exterior. The conversation started as normal. They discussed schedules, volunteers, upcoming programs. But Evan had a way of listening that was more than polite attention. He noticed details: the small frown when she glanced at paperwork, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous, the fleeting smiles she hid too quickly. "You're working too hard," he said quietly. "Don't forget to take a moment for yourself." It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't even advice. It was recognition. And for Claire, recognition was intoxicating. She had spent so long being a wife, a helper, a volunteer, that the woman inside her had nearly disappeared. And Evan had seen her the part she didn't even realize. She had lost. Her day passed in a haze of small talk and careful interactions. Every time Evan laughed or looked at her with sincere curiosity, Claire felt a spark she hadn't known in years. It was confusing. It was thrilling. And terrifying. When she returned home, Daniel was there, reading on the couch. He looked up, calm but alert, as if he had been anticipating her thoughts before she even thought them. "How was your day?" he asked. "Good, busy," she said lightly. She wanted to keep it simple. She wanted to avoid words that might expose the confusion inside her. Daniel didn't press. Instead, he closed his book and walked closer. "I know something changed today. I can see it in your eyes." Claire froze, unsure whether to retreat or confess. But before she could speak, Daniel continued, "I'm not angry. I want to understand you. I want to be the man you need. If there's something missing, we can find it together." Her chest tightened. That was the problem. Daniel's love was steadfast, patient, unshakable. It was everything she needed. And yet her heart ached for the novelty, the spark she felt with Evan. It wasn't a desire to leave Daniel. It was a desire to remember herself. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She walked quietly to the kitchen, brewed a cup of coffee, and stared out at the city lights flickering in the distance. Evan's message flashed again in her mind, innocent and cheerful, yet filled with a tension she had long forgotten. She sipped her coffee slowly, feeling both guilty and alive. The next day at the center, Evan approached her with a small stack of papers. "I've organized these the way you suggested," he said. His eyes held a flicker of pride, and Claire felt a warmth spread through her chest. "You remembered?" she asked, surprised. "Of course," he replied, smiling gently. "I'm paying attention." It was the same phrase she had been longing to hear, in subtle ways, for years. And she felt it like someone had finally acknowledged her existence beyond her roles. Later, during a short break, Evan asked, "Do you ever feel like people don't really see you?" Claire paused. She wanted to say yes, but the words lodged in her throat. Instead, she nodded slightly, and he smiled. Not in judgment, but in understanding. That small moment, that quiet acknowledgement, left her reeling with emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. When she returned home that evening, Daniel was waiting, a glass of wine in hand. He didn't ask about the center. He didn't inquire about Evan. Instead, he sat close, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You've been distant," he said softly. "But I feel like you're ready to share something." She wanted to speak. She wanted to explain the whirlwind inside her, the mix of guilt, longing, and curiosity. But words felt impossible. How could she explain that she wasn't craving someone else, exactly, but craving the feeling of being alive again? How could she explain that her heart wanted to remember the person she had been without making him feel inadequate? Days passed in this delicate balance. Claire's interactions with Evan remained polite but filled with small sparks of emotional connection. She found herself laughing more, feeling lighter, remembering the joy she had almost forgotten. But every evening, she returned to Daniel, who watched her with patient eyes, sensing the growing tension but never forcing it into words. Then came the Saturday evening that changed everything. The center hosted a small gathering for volunteers, casual and informal. Claire arrived early to help set up. Evan greeted her with his usual warmth, and for the first time, allowed herself a quiet moment to enjoy his presence without guilt. "Claire," he said gently, "you seem happier today. Did something good happen?" She smiled faintly, unsure how to answer. "I guess. Just a nice day," she said. But the truth was, Evan had a way of making her feel whole. Even in small, fleeting moments, Later, Daniel arrived to help clean up. He watched the room, observing the subtle interactions between Claire and Evan. The way Claire's eyes lit up when Evan laughed. He didn't scold her. He didn't withdraw. Instead, he approached her quietly, taking her hand and leading her to a corner where they could speak privately. "Claire," he said softly, "I've seen how you light up around him. I don't think I need to say more. I want you to know I'm not letting go of us. I see the parts of you you've hidden, and I want to be part of the person you're discovering again." Tears pricked at Claire's eyes. She realized that love wasn't just passion or excitement. It was patience, understanding, and recognition. Daniel's words reminded her of everything they had built. Of the years of shared dreams, struggles, and quiet moments. She squeezed his hand. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered, "but I also don't want to lose myself." Daniel nodded. "Then we find a way together. I'll fight for us, but I need you to fight for yourself too. I want to see the real Youth woman you've been waiting to remember." That night, Claire lay in bed, Daniel's hand warm on hers. She thought about Evan and the spark he had ignited. She realized it wasn't about him at all. It was about her awakening, about remembering her worth, her joy, her vitality. And for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She could feel desire, excitement, and love all without guilt, because it was rooted in life, not betrayal. Over the next weeks, Claire and Daniel began small changes. They spent time together intentionally, talking late into the night about dreams, fears, and small joys. Claire allowed herself to feel alive, to laugh freely, to rediscover the woman she had been before life's routines dulled her spark. And Evan remained a presence at the center, a reminder that the world still held moments of recognition, but not a threat to the love she nurtured at home. Claire's journey wasn't sudden. She didn't magically resolve all conflicts, but she learned that attraction and longing don't always signal disloyalty. They can signal self-discovery. And she learned that love, when patient and understanding, doesn't disappear when challenges arise. Months later, she found herself at the center again, coordinating volunteers. Evan passed by with a smile, and she smiled back, feeling the warmth of acknowledgement without confusion or guilt. When Daniel arrived to pick her up, she greeted him with a real, full smile, a smile that spoke of trust, intimacy, and shared growth. "Feeling better?" Daniel asked as they walked to the car. "I am," she replied, leaning on his shoulder. "I really am." For the first time in a long time, Claire understood that life could hold more than one kind of fulfillment. Excitement didn't have to threaten stability. Attention didn't have to replace love. And self-discovery didn't have to destroy a marriage. The spark Evan had ignited wasn't about him. It was about Claire remembering her own light band. Daniel had never stopped wanting to share it with her. And as the city lights reflected on the wet streets of Seattle that night, Claire knew she was finally awake. Awake to life, to love, and to herself.